Does the president now acknowledge what the special counsel indictments made clear, which is that Russians not only tried to meddle but interfere and influence the 2016 election?
Absolutely, and the president has acknowledged that multiple times before. He acknowledged it during the transition, he acknowledged it during a press conference in Poland, and he acknowledged it for a third time at a press event in Poland. He has stated several times, I think one of the places where you guys seem to get very confused, and it seems to happen regularly, the president hasn't said that Russia didn't meddle. What he's saying is it didn't have an impact, and it certainly wasn't with help from the Trump campaign. It's very clear that Russia meddled in the election. It's also very clear that it didn't have an impact on the election, and it's also very clear that the Trump campaign didn't collude with the Russians in any way for this process to take place.
So, if that's the case, why hasn't the president implemented the sanctions which Congress passed last year?
Look, frankly, that's not completely accurate. Look, this president's been tougher on Russia, far tougher on, well, there's a process that has to take place, and we're going through that process. That law also says that the countries have to violate something in order for those sanctions to go into place, and that hasn't necessarily happened. But what I can tell you, hold on, that the president has been extremely tough on Russia. He helped push through $700 billion to rebuild our military. I can assure you Russia is not excited about that. He's helped export energy to Eastern Europe. I can assure you Russia is not excited about that. He has put and upheld sanctions that the Obama administration put in place. He's upheld those. He's closed 3 diplomatic properties that were Russia's here in the United States. He has taken a number of actions against Russia and put pressure on them. He's helped arm the Ukrainians. There are a number of places that Obama was too weak and refused to take and put pressure on Russia where this president has.
There are Democrats and Republicans.
I'm gonna
They said
keep
the
moving.
president
John,
could be much tougher. Why not?
Sorry, I'm
implement
sure
the
he'll pick up where you
sanctions
left
now?
off.
I'll pick up first a clarification from some of the president's tweets over the weekend. The president doesn't really think that the FBI failed to stop the Parkland shooter because it was too involved with the Russia investigation, does he?
I think he was speaking not necessarily that is the cause. I think we all have to be aware that the cause of this is that of a deranged individual that made a decision to take the lives of 17 other people. That is the responsibility of the shooter. Certainly not the responsibility of anybody else.
So did he mistweet when he said that? 'Cause he's pretty direct. He says, this is not acceptable. They are spending too much time trying to prove Russia
I think he's
collusion.
making the point that we would like our FBI agencies to not be focused on something that is clearly a hoax in terms of investigating the Trump campaign and its involvement.
You just agree that the evidence is there, that the
I
Russians
said that the
interfered with our
Trump
election.
campaign interfered and
But
colluded
this
with it.
investigation is obviously about what Russia did, and that raises the question now that you've said the president agrees, the national security advisor says the evidence is incontrovertible. What is the president going to do about it? What is he specifically doing about the fact that Russia interfered with our election and has every intention, we are told, of doing it again? What is he doing about it?
Look, just last week, the Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kirstjen Nielsen met with a number of relevant stakeholders. They're discussing this process and going through and looking every single day at the best ways forward. Everybody wants to blame this on the Trump administration. Let's not forget that this happened under the Obama administration.
It happened over a year ago. What's he done about it?
We have spent a lot of time working on cybersecurity, focusing on protecting the fairness on our elections. And as I just said, the Department of Homeland Security met with state and local officials just over the last several weeks, along with election vendors to make sure that our election system is secure. Last week, they met with state and private officials on how best to secure the election system from foreign interference. We're not the only targets of foreign interference, and we're working with our allies on the daily basis to make sure that we're following best practices. This has been a topic of conversation with multiple foreign heads of state. President Trump and the administration have made it clear that interference in our elections will have consequences, and we're going to continue to impose consequences in response to Russian cyber attacks. Just last week, we called out Russia by name. It was one of the first times that you've seen something like that take place. We're going to continue doing things like that.
The president hasn't criticized Vladimir Putin about this. He hasn't even called out Putin. He criticized Obama, he criticized the FBI. He didn't even criticize Vladimir Putin. in
He
the
has
latest
been
indictment.
tougher on Russia in the first year than Obama was in 8 years combined. He's imposed sanctions. He's taken away properties. He's rebuilt our military. He has done a number of things to put pressure on Russia and to be tough on Russia. Just last week, there was an incident that'll be reported in the coming days in another way that this president was tough on Russia.
Sarah.